Truthseeker and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the Truth Seeker podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Truth Seeker. This is the Truth Seeker podcast. I'm excited and delighted to be with you guys again today. Got an awesome episode planned for you. Awesome discussion. Want to let everybody know that the phone lines are open. If you would like to call in a little bit later in the show, ask your questions or share your stories with us, you could do that as well. So make sure that you take advantage of the technology. I want to say a huge thank you before we move further to all the patrons, everybody supporting this show, supporting my work via Patreon. I couldn't do it without you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Give a quick shout out to the two newest patrons we got within the last day or so. We have Christina Moore, which is a good friend of mine. She's now come aboard with the patron community, and Holly as well. One more person, Kathy Collins. Thank you guys for the support. I know a lot of you guys personally, so thank you guys for supporting my work. And want to say that if you support some of the things you get access to, man, it's something I'm really excited about right now. We're doing Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central. We're doing something called the School of the Mystics, and we're essentially formulating a community around the podcast. So a lot of people who listen, a lot of people who are linked in, they don't have nobody to really talk to unless it's just listening to hours of random podcasts or whatever, but they need somebody to kind of bounce their experiences off of. They listen to this show and they you know what I'm saying, they resonate with it so much, but they want to take it to the next level. So essentially it's our community where we're coming together and doing these courses right now. So there's a course that we're doing called Basic Training for Prophetic Ministry. So pretty much what it is, it's like a biblical look at hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit speaking to you, speaking in your life, and whether we would call that listening to your own inner intuition, your own inner ear, ESP it's called in some traditions. So being able to sense these senses that we're feeling, being empathic. A lot of people can resonate with that, but they don't know what to do with it. So we're taking a biblical approach to this and seeing how like the prophets in the Old Testament would be led by these voices or led by the moving of the Holy Spirit, and seeing miracles and seeing transformation not only in your own life but in the lives of people around you. So we're doing the course together, we're building a community, and then at the very end there's like an activation where we get into actually practicing listening to that inner ear and that inner sensitivity. So it's been awesome. We're only 2 weeks into this, and if you missed any of those discussions and classes, you can go back and browse the archives. You get all that by becoming a patron. So make sure you guys take advantage of that. It's so cool, like all the people who are joining in And everybody's at a different level too. So it's just really cool, man, that when we all come together, what happens on these live streams. So make sure you take advantage of that. Also, by supporting, you get access to my entire discography of music. It's 10 plus albums, as well as my unreleased music. Every time I get done with a song, I release it strictly to Patreon. So there it's like private access, all that good stuff. So make sure you guys support. If you could do anywhere from $1, $5, $10, whatever you can do, you get access to all that stuff. It really means the world to me. The podcast is free to consume, but it's not free to produce. So thank you guys for all the support. And I want to say too, give a shout out to Patrick, aka All It Is. We've done a song together recently. I had him on as a guest, and it's because of him that we're doing this show today. So he introduced me to my guest today, and he really believes in his work, and this was his grand finale, was to talk about what we're going to be talking about today on the All It Is episode. So give a shout out to Patrick as well for making this happen, and Patrick is a patron as well. So thank you guys, everybody out there who support my work. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring my guest on. This is essentially someone who I guess would be Bilyl Meier's English mouthpiece, I guess would be a good way to put it. Someone who's taken the case of Bilyl Meier and brought it to a whole new audience, and has continued to promote it and give his insight on the case. And I think it's really cool because on the interview that I had with All It Is, that was his finale. And I don't know. I thought that Bilyl had passed away. And I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people in the chat who thought that there was some media years ago that came forth and said Bilyl Meier had passed away. But when we had Patrick on, Patrick told us that that's not the case. Michael Horn, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. And Bilyl Meier is still with us, very much alive in Switzerland.
Switzerland. How old is he now?
He's 81 years old.
81. Was there any type of smear campaigns or fake death things that was put out there? Was that one of them, that he had passed away? Have you seen any of that?
I don't know if there was any particular smear campaign about that. There have been plenty of smear campaigns against Bilyl.
Yeah.
And I remember a few people over the years even have said to me, "Oh, I thought he died," and stuff. I said, no, Billy's still quite with us here. So people do all sorts of things. There's been 23 attempts in his life. So trying to say that he's not here anymore would be a kind of, light to campaign against him.
Yeah. So for the audience listening today, if someone has no idea who Bilyl Meier is or what his case means, if you want to maybe start from the beginning, just kind of give an overview of who Bilyl Meier is and what he has brought to ufology to the table. If you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about that, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Thank you. Bilyl Meier, as I say, is a now 81-year-old man who claims that his contacts with extraterrestrial human beings that we now know are called Plejaren, but were previously referred to as Pleiadians, began when he was 5 years old in Switzerland in 1942. He claims that these contacts with a variety of the people from the overall Plejaren Federation continue to this day, 76 years later. The conversations that he's had with these people, there are now hundreds of transcripts of them. There are well over 27,000 pages of information that Meier has published. Initially, it's all published in German, and still only a small percentage, maybe 6,000, 7,000 pages have found their way into English. And other languages it's published in as well, Italian, and there are some translations that have gone into Spanish, into Czech, into Japanese, different languages. And what I like to say here is, there's so much information, but the Meier case is the only scientifically proven, still ongoing UFO contact case. And recently, within the last couple of years, we've had 4 independent experts who were not directly previously involved with UFOs all who are high-level, investigators and experts in their field come forward and basically say this is authentic. And the most recent important one, in my estimation, took place just late last year when a man who had been calling me for, at that point, nearly a year, I learned finally his background. He was the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations highest ranked case supervisor from the late 60s into early 70s. He'd come across this information. He thought it might be a hoax, and he applied his investigative skills to looking at the evidence and information. He determined that it was absolutely ironclad and that he personally would take on any skeptics that wanted to try to attack the case. And basically his article, which I have, of course, on my blog, has ended the no, I'm not getting any skeptical attack. I mean, occasionally some loose cannon on the internet comes by, but he ended the debate on it. So we are pretty firm about saying, while there are many people that claim this and claim that, in terms of a verifiable, scientifically proven, actual contact case between someone on Earth and actual extraterrestrials, Meier's is singularly authentic.
Where do you fit in with this in this whole situation? I guess, moreover, where do you fit in? But where do you start? Like, what was your fascination with UFOs or ufology? Did it begin with the Meier case, or have you had encounters as well?
What happened is, ever since I was very young, I would have dreams about lights moving through the sky, objects. I remember dreaming about, I think it was a dream, of being underneath a disc and it rotated, and I knew that it could move in all these different directions. So, as a kid, I was, and this is going back quite a ways, obviously, but it wasn't until 1979 when I walked into a bookstore in Los Angeles and I saw the first photo book, which I still have to this day, that I found the Meier case. And when I looked at those photos from the first moment, there was a knowingness that that was all authentic and, this is really something else. And it's been over, it's nearly now 40 years of being involved. And that means 18 trips to Switzerland, putting out 4, 5, 6 films, documentaries on Meier, personally doing a lot of research. Once the UFO part is interesting, but it's not the most important part at all. Once I got into finding out how much information, scientific and world event related, Meier had verifiably published before the discoveries were made or the events occurred, then I started to feel like, wow, this is about something else, more than UFOs and even more than the extraterrestrials themselves. This is something quite profound. And to date, along with the help of even skeptics, we've had over 200 specific examples of what I call Meier's specific prophetically accurate information. And it's unparalleled in human history.
So what's the main agenda when it comes to these encounters with ufology with Bilyl Meier? Is it spirituality? Is that it? Is that, I think, usually the main message in the end, to better oneself and how to fix humanity, if you will?
Yes, and unlike it being just you could say the overriding message, is spirituality. It's what's literally called the spiritual teaching in this. And the teaching is very deep and extensive, and it is a non-religious, belief-free teaching. So what I say to people is, if you want to learn how to fix computers or electronics or anything else that's a study, a teaching, you take that information, you read, study, test, and apply. So there's nothing to believe in the Meier case whatsoever, and people are free to, study it, test it or not. But the spiritual teaching, I see an underlying message as well, underlying intention. And that intention is that it is the key to our future survival, literally. The purpose of these contacts is not frivolous at all. The spiritual teaching presented, again, by the Plejaren and Meier and through Meier, has been presented to us 6 times previously in human history, and each time it's been corrupted and changed and falsified, but this time it will remain forever because a lot of it because of electronic media and the fact that more people now can read and write than ever could before throughout history.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview you were doing earlier, and you were speaking about how there's less communication and contact through video and pictures now, seemingly that everyone is able to kind of recreate those images now with CGI, and it's really hard to tell what's real and what's not. So it moves beyond just having some type of picture or video. It's moving into people just having encounters and experiences as well. Talk a little bit about how that's changed, and how when it comes to that, I think Bilyl Meier was definitely one of the first ones to do it, and I think a lot of people kind of tried to follow suit. And I don't think, like you said, not in a bad way. People are just wanting to kind of get into ufology, or they feel called to it, and that's, people want proof, so they try to take pictures, they try to get videos and stuff. Talk a little bit about the pictures and stuff like that from the early days that he was producing.
Okay, well, this is a very important area, and I'm sure that there will be people that are going to disagree with what I'm going to say, and it's fine. It's up to everybody to make up their own mind. Meier's photos and films also, everything was pre-digital era. So it's all, film, regular cameras. This was done because they knew, and they told him as well, that once we entered the digital age and the computer age, people would be able to make effects. No one to date has ever actually duplicated one of his photos, because when you do analyze his photos, and they've been done dating back 40 years, the original analysis with what was state-of-the-art technology then, and now using computer technologies that have been applied to analyze this stuff, there are people who've made very good models of Meier's, the objects in Meier's photos, but they can't duplicate his photos, because once you start taking those models out to photograph them, you're always going to be showing a small model close to the camera. Meier had large objects a great distance from the camera. And I want to make this clear, even though, as I say, this will not sit well with people, there are no people on Earth who are in contact with extraterrestrials. Now, I say that because the other part of my statement is, if anybody actually had that evidence, I'd be, of course, very willing to see it. So would everybody. But Meier's evidence, which constitutes at this point proof, is so extensive and is in at least 5 or 6 different categories of evidence that people claim things because, let's face it, we want to feel a connection. Yeah. We want to have a sense that we're connected to something greater than us, to people who are smarter, maybe someone's going to help us out of the mess, which is not going to happen. That's not going to happen at all. We are the same as countless numbers of races, human races, throughout the creation, throughout the universe. The Plejaren have gone through their own evolution over a very vast period of time. Their ancestors were like Star Wars on steroids. They went through a lot of gruesome stuff with high tech and the capabilities they had that they also used for wars and things. So having settled themselves down into a peaceful state that they've had now for well over 50,000 years in their world and in their federation, they'd like to see us avoid literally blowing ourselves off the face of the earth. And to that end, they have given us prophecies. They've given us predictions. They've warned us of an incoming object that is heading towards Earth, and the first pass will be in 11 years if it doesn't strike at that point. They've done lots and lots of things that are all verifiable. So the people that I consider part of my research team, these are scientists, military, aerospace, astrophysicists, etc., people who don't care about claims about contact and they want hard evidence that they can deal with, evaluate, and determine how do we use this if it's really true. So this is where a lot of the good intentions behind wanting something, some kind, I get it. And, as I say, nearly 40 years of research here, I've had 7 sightings. Most UFOs, folks, are secret military, including at least 5 of the ones I saw. the extraterrestrials are not everywhere coming, to visit us and all this stuff. Any more than we, in our current state with airplanes and all, are going to find and visit, let's call it disturb, any and all of remaining more primitive peoples on the earth, which of course we do. We go and we invade and disturb wherever we find something. So these people have a very hands-off, attitude. They are inserting the information. They've done it. They've given us that which was their mission to put into our world. It's up to us now what we do with it. Totally up to us. No one's coming to invade us, save us, or anything else. The difficulties that we'll have with other races will occur more in the future if we survive ourselves. We are the greatest threat to our survival, not from outside of us.
I agree. So let me ask you this. So I did hear you on the interview as well. There were some names that you threw out there of possible disinfo guys, people who were in it for the money, people who were in it for the fantasy or the lore behind this type of stuff, right? And some of these people are getting really famous. And I try to take a neutral standpoint, even if I have an inner knowing about some people. I really don't have nothing that I can prove. Some of these people have gotten really big in ufology. They're doing the big conferences and circuits and things like that. And you have called some names out of some people. Is there anybody that you do appreciate their work that they're bringing to the table? Somebody that you would take your hat off to for what they're bringing to ufology?
Well, it's a very fair question, and it's hard to answer it in the affirmative for this reason. I appeared at a lot of UFO expos and conferences and things, and I've done it internationally. And once I started to call out what I consider to be disinformation and nonsense, suddenly people didn't want that because there's a business going on. It's,
yeah.
Are now, you're in trouble when the government starts talking about UFO. You know that there's something fishy going on, and believe me, there's something very fishy going on. Or don't believe me, just check it out for yourself.
Yeah.
So let me answer it this way. If any of the people who are out there lecturing and carrying on about UFOs and aliens and all this energy, and if any of them had one verifiable piece of evidence of extraterrestrial manufacture origin, I don't mean like a piece of the rock coming through, I'd be interested in what they're saying. But to a person, not a one of them will debate this. They, for the most part, all of the big names in ufology will attack the Meier case because it puts an end to what we consider ufology. MUFON is an organization I'm sure you're familiar with. I happen to know, I've interacted with the president. I think he's still up there, Jan Hartson from MUFON. He's acknowledged to me personally with a witness that he knew the Meier case was authentic, but it was too good to be true, and all sorts of excuses. MUFON is an organization that works with either the State Department or CIA with any good evidence. It goes to them first, and I have this on real good authority from someone who's in the aerospace industry that they tried to recruit. You have to understand something here, folks. It's a hard one to say. Look, I personally, I don't have anything against anybody personally. I'll just tell you that. I like people. There's a guy named Stanton Friedman. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you know he is. And he's a nice guy. I've met him up in Canada and all of this stuff. Stanton Friedman wanted to be involved in the research on the Meier case in the late 70s and 80s, but the investigative team headed by a lieutenant colonel retired from the U.S. Air Force said, no, we are not bringing any UFO people into this because all of Meier's evidence, it's so good and it's so controversial, it must be analyzed only by independent experts. So Stanton Friedman then starts attacking the Meier case. This is what's happened with all these people. And Stanton Friedman's talking about Roswell. I knew Roswell was authentic when I was 15 years old because I had an associate in high school, a kid in high school whose dad was in the Air Force, was telling me they found a flying saucer. This goes way back. And Roswell was a real event. There's just nothing left. for us to analyze. And so what happens here is, when I say the Meier case is the key to our future survival, I put out a DVD by that title 14 years ago, because I got it when I started to see his prophetic information and the scientific information, and 14 years ago, finding out that he was already ahead of our scientists by decades. The lights are going on for me. The UFO community, this is entertainment. And here's the problem. People said to me when I was talking out against people, I said, wait a minute, well, you shouldn't say bad things about so-and-so. I said, wait a minute. Is this going to be the only field in which we're not going to think critically? You have people from something called exopolitics, and politics is full of all, but I'm not supposed to tell people and call it out when I know and I can show that it's not true. So no, I'm not going to shut up about it, because it's too important to our survival. What's coming down in this country, folks, which Meier has warned about since 1981 and before, this is no party, and we're seeing it unfold now. We're seeing the very things nationally and internationally that we've been warned and warned and warned about. And what have they done? They tried to kill the man for it. They made an industry out of talking about UFOs, and not one of those people knows what they're talking about. Sure, they can bring information about third-hand stuff about Roswell or Rendlesham. Objects, great, wonderful technology. What are you going to do with it? What about when you've got a man who's meeting with people who have the capacity and capability to travel through space and time in some cases, and who can tell him things accurately, and we start ticking them off, 200 of them that have happened. There are events going on in Italy right now, central Italy, that he was told about in 1948 when he was 11 years of age. Why are we wasting I'm telling you this. Why are we wasting our time with UFOs and extraterrestrials when we've been given, literally, freely, a body of work that is invaluable, that helps us in our daily lives? It's not about us looking always outward to the sky, because like you're talking about, this is an inward journey, and they've given us a teaching that we can apply our minds, our intuition, and everything else to, and to test. We don't have to believe a darn thing. People said to me, well, do you believe in the Bilyl Meier case? I said, no. They said, well, but you represent. I said, I know it's true. I don't have to believe it. I don't know everything that they've said about the distant past or the as yet unarrived future is true, because I don't have the tools yet to go back into time, or we haven't discovered this thing. But we keep on discovering, new discoveries. Meier warns in 1981 about what they, at the time, they said, we call it the red meteor. It's heading towards your planet. And unless your scientists come together and deflect it with an atomic explosion, it will either hit on April 13th, 2029, or on April 13th, 2036. 23 years later, NASA discovers what they call asteroid Apophis. They're not concerned about it in 2000. Now they're getting more concerned. And then just a few years ago, what did they do? They changed the size estimate to within 25 meters of what Meier was told. Meier never has to change anything. We are constantly changing and making new discoveries to confirm what the man has been told. So this is why, to go back to your core question about UFO experts, I will debate any of them. I offered to debate the top skeptics of the world, James Randi and the rest. I can't even get them to take me on. I have taken on skeptics, astronomers, all these people aligned with skepticism and stuff. The game is over. It's not me. Meier's material is ironclad. They cannot. It's like one astronomer, Phil Plait, some years ago, is poo-pooing the whole thing and all this stuff. Now he's endorsing the very same thing that Meier, warns about Apophis. So, but none of these people will give credit to Meier, because, see, whether it's the astronomers and the scientists, or it's the silly people in ufology, the experts who don't know anything, they all want the light on them. They want their payments.
Yeah.
This is the way our world works. It isn't exclusive to them. There are people who care more about the truth and our survival. Your generation, the younger generations below you, the one just above, there are people who care. But you're not going to find them in ufology. And you're not going to find a lot of them in science unless there's something in it for them. Fortunately, a couple of years back, I met a skeptical professor up in the area where I live in northern Arizona. And for 4 months, skeptic. I met him at an all-day skeptics event. For 4 months, he vetted the Meier material until he said to me one day, "You've got a lecture about this in my class." And here's what happened, which was on top of that. In November of 2015, there had been the attacks by the radical Islamists in Paris. And he sends me an email. Guess what I said to my wife after the attacks yesterday? I already knew this was coming. Thank you, Michael. Because I'd sent him Meier's warnings, which we've had even on my DVD since 2004, about what was coming to France, Paris, from radical Islam, which Meier is the first person to warn about going back to 1958. So do I need to hear a bunch of people who are going to yammer about imaginary blue avians and lecturing on this and carrying on about that? I don't mind, you want to say, if anybody wants these people to debunk the Meier case or to debate with me, I'm ready. I'll do it publicly. I'll do it anywhere. Just let's get to what this is about. It's the future survival of humankind, not making $100 going to a UFO conference and getting up and babbling about things you have no experience with. I'm the only person lecturing on UFOs about an independently, scientifically proven, ongoing case. I've been within 20 feet of a small monitoring craft from these people, and I've received information from them through Meier that proved for me so that I could avoid a very, very dangerous situation that proved to be 100% prophetically accurate. Do I care about Roswell with silliness like all that stuff going on when I have these experiences and firsthand knowledge and the only authentic case to report on? That's why you won't find me at most of these UFO events.
Yeah, they really wouldn't try to make room for you there if you're not afraid to kind of call it out. And even let me ask you this though, because if I'm correct, I heard you refer to what we would call extraterrestrials or aliens or angels, or whatever people have different names from. Did you call them people? Did you refer to them as people? Is there any revelation behind that Billy was told that they are to be called people, or they are us from another time? I mean, what's going on with that?
According to the information of the case, that's something I like to say a lot because there's things I can't prove. According to the information of the case, the universe is teeming with human life and various developments of evolutionary development, heights, skin. There's hundreds of different skin colors. There are people that are gigantic. There are people that are very small. The people he meets with are virtually indistinguishable from us physically. He's met with people that we would say look like any number of the races on Earth. There are people that we would use the term Asian, Black, Mediterranean, Northern European. This whole thing with aliens is part of the hugest disinformation campaign you can imagine. Sure, are there unusual looking beings out in the universe? I'm sure. Is he meeting with them? No, with the exception of one race that he met. They're all very much looking very much like us. And so, where do the little grays come from? Well, I'm going to tell you. The grays were the androids, little robotic artificial intelligence creatures found at the Roswell crash and perhaps maybe at one of the other 8 or 9 crashes that have taken place on Earth, where there were military retrievals by one country. They were not the extraterrestrials themselves. They were what we would do. We would send a robotic, vehicle. These are robotic, just like we are already, making drones and first stages of robotic creatures, some for, uses that are not exactly elevated. So these creatures, when they found this became the model for the evil alien, nobody here is being abducted by any kind of abducted by extraterrestrials. If you're being abducted by anything, 99.9% chance it's a secret military operation.
Yeah, my lab.
my lab. It's hypnosis. It's mass hypnosis. People believing things, fantasizing. Do not underestimate the power of the and unconscious parts of the human mind to take on all of this stuff that has been pumped at us from the 50s on. Aliens, weird creatures. And we get it in commercials. We get it through every form of media. And so many people take it on. If they have sleep paralysis, if they have indigestion, gosh, if there's a military type of a thing, they suddenly think they're being abducted by aliens. But logic tells us that that's not the case. Has it ever happened in our history? Yes. There's probably been a handful of these so-called contact examinations by some race that's curious about us, and they put a person out, they put them in a deep hypnosis, they examine them, and most of that goes unnoticed and unrevealed. Sometimes something could pop through. So has it ever happened? Yes. But is this whole thing of experiencers and abductees? No. You know what? None of us are important enough to space-traveling, extraterrestrial, long-lived, high-tech races for them to come here, traveling through light years and light years of space and maybe time, and dick around with Aunt Edna and Uncle Joe to float them through walls and take their genetic material, which is extremely inferior to the genetic material of races that have already genetically even engineered themselves to higher levels of development in order to travel through space. So if you get into the Meier material and you start to read and study and test it out, oh my gosh, he was right about this, he's right about that, he's right about this, endlessly, you go, well, wait a minute, what about all the rest of this stuff? Well, where's the real evidence for it? It doesn't exist. Well, someone had an implant. From where? Why would you think that it's extraterrestrial instead of what's more accurate? And that is that we've had these technologies for decades. And I know people who have been in the military, in special forces, all this stuff. They were privy to stuff that we now, we see now. They've had it for a long time. The problem, certainly in America, is we are being inundated with disinformation. I've got a video online, the real UFO films the Pentagon hid from you. The Pentagon admits it spent $110 million and they couldn't find the freely available Meier material. There's not a mention of it. They fund this guy, Bob Bigelow, who's got a company that manufactures technologies. I hate to say what I think some of it's about. Mr. Bigelow is very not interested in anybody talking about the Meier case because all these people, what do they want? They want power. It's weapons development. I was told by somebody who knew, when you are reporting sightings for MUFON, you're helping to do free research for the military-industrial complex, because since most of these craft are secret military, they want to know, what did you see? How does it look? Did you capture anything in video? So, extraterrestrials flying. No, not extraterrestrials flying all over. These are things that are being developed, secret military, at various places and bases. And for 100 years on this planet, there have been various parties that have already had alternative craft. They're not interplanetary. They are alternative, and they've been seen for decades on Earth. I'm sorry if this pops anybody's bubbles, but if we don't get down to the business at hand, which is literally our survival, not from a fear-based level, but from what you're talking about, coming together with each other, finding the best information, working in harmony, in peace and love and freedom with each other on the small levels that we now still have available before everything is shut down by various forces that are hardly even secret anymore. What's coming is a global financial collapse. There's many things you can be finding out in the Meier material, what's coming, and test it out against your own perceptions.
There's some comments here in the comment section in the chat going on that I want to bring to the table.
Sure.
And it has to do with some of the hoaxer stuff. I remember when I got into the Meier material some years ago, probably around 2012, got into it, and it's one of those things where, like, you want it to be real. And that's probably the same thing with, Dr. Steven Greer, James Gilliland, Prophet Yahweh. I don't know if you remember him, but so there's this thing where you kind of want it to be real. I read a lot of the material that Meier had put out and watched a lot of documentaries and stuff. And then I came across these pictures that were so-called hoaxer pictures. And then there was also some photo shoots with these girls who were supposed to be maybe in a pop band or something. And so people are commenting in the chat room about all of these pictures being fiction and fake. Someone said, I think it was Patrick on here, was talking about how those were like artistic recreations of his encounters, and they weren't shared to be legit. Can you talk a little bit about those pictures and stuff?
Actually, whoever's been bringing this up in the chat room is doing a huge service here, so we can straighten this out. I'm going to now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer back to the guy who's the military investigator, Joe Tisk. And what he did is he took Meier's first reports and photos from 1964 in India. And Joe went through all sorts of stuff here, and he said, look, unless any skeptic can show me how this man, 27 years old in India in 1964, can have an album with 80 UFO photos, a dozen of which still remain to this day, that they're shown to a reporter for a real, legitimate, well-respected newspaper in India. The man is interviewed in all of this. The photos are still, he says, if you don't show me how those photos to start the whole thing off are fake, you're done. Then he says, I looked at the reports from a guy named Wally Gentleman, who was the special effects director for a film called 2001. That's before a lot of people's time because the film was made some time ago. Wally Gentleman says, I could duplicate Meier's film, but I need 15 people and tens of thousands of dollars to do it, because everything in his film that he shoots with one hand with a little film camera is correct. The lighting, the shadow, the thing. Then I personally go to, and I'm going to go back to every detail that they want answered on this. Then I personally went to the people who won the Academy Award for Independence Day in 2006, because we have a film out, and I wanted their commentaries in making our film, which is called The Silent Revolution of Truth. And they said, well, we could duplicate that film, but we'd have to use CG to do it, because it's clearly, otherwise the guy's got a crane and huge wires. He says, that's not a model. So the experts, and then back going to 78, the photographic experts that analyzed right up to a couple of years ago, 3 new analyses. What happened here is this. Meier has never hoaxed one photo. There were falsified photos that got inserted into the ones, because he never developed his own photos. He would photograph or film, bring them to a camera shop, they would send them out. Well, they started to intercept some of those films and photos and sent back falsified ones to try to discredit him. Now, I worked in 2009 through the internet with a skeptic in England who was trying to duplicate his photos. I was advising the guy, said, you've got to take your best shot. And he came out with really good photos. His films are not so good. His photos were really good because he was working with Meier's originals, and he's a good model maker, but he couldn't even then duplicate the details. He won't have his photos or films analyzed because he knows that they're going to show to be models. So I said, look, his name's Phil. I said, Phil, you've done really nice effects here, but it's not, Meier has a very famous film where the UFO comes in and he zooms in on it and you see everything, and 2 lights go off, broad daylight. Well, Phil couldn't even do it. So he pastes little white dots on a model. Okay. Now you talk about the women. They said, oh, well, Bilyl Meier has just photographed or filmed or whatever women from the Dean Martin show off of a TV screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of problems with the claims about the photography, because it would have involved so much on Bilyl Meier's part to find out when a Dean Martin show is being broadcast in Switzerland in 1975 or 6 or whatever, and having a camera. His camera is set to infinity. So his camera is mainly useful for being outside and capturing the photograph. So he would have to have it placed in front of a TV screen, and then when he captured the photograph at the right moment, which would then have all these lines in front of it from these. Okay, so when those photographs are analyzed, you can see that they are overlays that were manipulated using actual like captured footage, videotaped footage, where they even had moved images in it so that one of the women, when you look, is wearing Dean Martin shirt. Stuff Bilyl Meier couldn't have even done. But beyond that, I mean, literally, we've got a page up on my site.
So those are hoaxed by someone else. Those are hoax, but
Yes.
they're done by somebody else.
Meier could. We show all the reasons why he couldn't have even done it. And nobody has ever shown that he had access to the show. There's a laundry list of all the ingredients. And then you look at the actual photos and you analyze them and you say, well, it's not even the same woman. It's a composite. Now, the woman that they're talking about is a woman named Michelle de la Favre. She was a singer and dancer on this Dean Martin show. So last year in January, I get a call from a woman in New York saying she's a friend of Michelle's, and they want to go and meet Bilyl Meier because Michelle, who supposedly, whose face is supposedly she says, Michelle knows that that's not her, and that Billy's not a hoaxer. So Meier wasn't seeing people anymore. He had heart operation, all this stuff, but he made the exception, and they came over. And there's a video online, you can find it, where Billy is sitting with Michelle, the supposed, the woman who looks like Ascot, because she does. She looks so much like Ascot. And when I went over a couple months later, Billy had the photos he took with Michelle and Susie, the other woman, on his desk. And he kept saying to me, she really does look so much like Ascot. It's amazing. But here, there's even more to this. Because they warned Meier going back, I think it was 1975. I remember reading it, and we have it. It's in a book, where he's told that in America, there are a couple of women who are entertainers who look very much like Ascot and Noorey. And Billy says, oh, let's go look in. They say, no, for certain reasons, we're leaving that alone. 13, 20 years later, whatever, comes the whole controversy. The Plejaren already knew. And they knew many things that Meier was going to get, just going to be really difficult, but they couldn't stop it because it had to happen. They already had looked forward in some cases in time. And they just said, well, for certain reasons, we're not going to mess with that. But this is one of those cases that if anybody on my website, on my actual website, theyfly.com, I have an article, Ascot and Noorey, and you can look at it. You can look at the photos. You can read all the information. And I have an article on my blog where we updated all the additional reasons why Meier could not have been the person who put that fake photograph together. But this is good because go back to the photos of the craft. He has never hoaxed a photo. He didn't need to, as Joe said about the 64 evidence. And there's more to that because there was a woman who was a young girl in India at the time who was a witness with another woman. They were witnesses to the craft and to this woman, Ascot, walking around with Meier. And she comes forward 30 years later, and Joe says, look, what's in it for her? She's a retired UN diplomat. And why would she come forward and disturb her own life at this time? And he said, this guy, Joe, had done hundreds of cases for the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigation. And he said, look, I have vetted people who are in public office, who are aspiring to be in higher office. We ferreted out spies and moles. I've read people's body language and everything. This guy, Bilyl Meier, is the most honest guy I've ever seen. I've looked at every video of his, and his evidence is real. And he's, as I said, he says, I'll take on any. He took on two skeptics who were attacking the Meier case, and he told them they were just full of it. And one of them is a so-called UFO researcher who blathers on about Roswell and this and that, all this silly stuff. And Joe calls me up and he says, I don't know how you deal with these people. They don't know how to think. They're not researchers. They're not investigators. And they're attacking Bilyl Meier. This is real. Get over it. And then I had another guy I didn't know who was an attorney and a former trial lawyer. Out of the blue, he writes me, he says, I've looked at all this information. He says, this is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This is courtroom quality evidence. On and on it goes. So for people that have heard, oh, it's a hoax, Bilyl Meier as Joe says, why would Bilyl Meier ever need to hoax anything when in 1964 he's got 80 real UFO photos and you still have a dozen of them? No, that's not how life works. So that all that info is there for people to think through themselves. I don't twist anybody's arms to tell you got to believe this, because there's nothing to believe. It's either true or it isn't.
Let me ask you this, because, and this is kind of deviating a little, but it's something we touched on before we went live. Somebody in the chat room was asking about 5G, and you mentioned you have a necklace that you wear that kind of protects you from the 5G. I don't know if you want to call it radiation or not, but you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I did have some questions here that people were bringing up, and I thought it would be fitting because you had some technology you were showing me that you have.
I'll show it and I'll tell you, actually to me, it's a slightly funny story, and I'll tell you why. I don't wear any rings or watches or jewelry. I never did until in 2004. I was in San Francisco at an expo, and I was speaking at this expo, and I was walking around looking at all the booths, and I saw this object that for some reason I was really attracted to it, and I kept coming back and trying it on, so I bought it. So I go to Switzerland with it the next month. I go over to see Billy and everybody, and I'm wearing this thing because I like it. And there's a woman, she's wearing a different object. And I said, well, what the heck is that? So I'll give you the visuals on this for what it's worth, because I have both of these. All right, so this is the thing. It's just like a little pendant. I liked it. And so I bought it, and I bought two of them. And I go to Switzerland, and there's a woman walking around. She's wearing this. And I said, well, what the heck is that? She said, well, it's called a ray guard. And she said, the Plejaren, the extraterrestrials that visit with Billy, said that these things actually work, and they're very good, and they make them for, this is like personal use and desktops and all sorts of stuff. And the Plejaren tested it out, and they said, that's a good thing to have. Okay. So I said, well, that's really curious. I like yours. She said, well, I like the one you've got. So we switched. This is, I had two. So I kept one when I came back to the States. I had this, and I would keep this usually in my pocket. And I said to her, well, why don't you know what? We were emailing back and forth. I said, see if Billy can get the Plejaren to test the one that I've got. And she said, okay, but I don't know if they'll do it. Well, so about a week, 10 days later, she writes me back and she said, Billy asked them if they would do it. And they did. And Quetzal, who's one of their technical people, I guess they're all technical, took the device you've got and he tested it, everything about it. I said, well, what did you find out? He says, it's absolutely useless against electromagnetics, but because the human being generates an energetic field and what they call fluidal forces and stuff, objects like this, just like other jewelry and things, will hold those forces to it, which is a good reason why we shouldn't, for the most part, wear a lot of jewelry, crystals and things that we think are beautiful. They're holding a lot of energies that aren't good for us. But if you feel good about this particular object and it's holding these energies to you, it could be helpful for you, but it's not anywhere near this at all, this thing, which is called the ray guard. So recently, this woman I know in Colorado who's involved with the Meier material decided she would contact the European manufacturer for the ray guard and sell it. And I said to her, hey, look, I've got that, ray guard. And I got the new one from her because it's for 5G and all the heavier stuff that's coming towards us. And I said to her, if I put up an ad for you on my blog, could I give a discount code for people so that they could get money off? These are not, they're not cheap. She said, yeah, I'll give them a good discount. All you have to do is, what's your code? And I said, well, my code will be MH1212. So, if you go to my blog or, email, whatever, you'll find that this company, that she's got a website, it's called Neutral Wise or something like that. And I link to it off of my blog. I haven't put it on my website yet. And with my discount code, and I usually announce it each time when I put up for my own little online show like I do on Tuesday night. So she also is giving away, she has them for the phones too. And now she's giving, if people come to her site and they can use my code and get a discount, and she'll give a free phone chip too, because there are people coming out, there's videos and stuff about just how damaging especially 5Gs, I mean, brain melting stuff. And, everybody's carrying these things on them. Yeah. So that's just a little thing I wanted people to know. I don't run around everywhere wearing the thing externally. I just keep it under my shirt and, make sure that people that I care about, anybody, knows about it, and then you're free to get it or not. But Billy, they make them in different little pyramidal shapes and things for desks and homes. And so, you can get really expensive ones, but if you have the personal one, I put it under my pillow and sleep with it too, because we're bombarded all the time, and this stuff will work, for neutralizing all that. And, that's a little diversionary, but they were warning Meier about cell phones and all these frequencies long before our reports were coming out here. It's in the material. I mean, that's the weird part about the Meier case. You go through there and they're warning about this stuff decades ago, all these different things, or they're telling him about wandering black holes and colliding black holes and the speed of gravity and the speed of and then we get these new discoveries. So I'm going, this is where I come back to so-called UFO experts. Well, tell me something of unique significance and importance that your supposed extraterrestrials have either given to you, because Meier was given metal samples, and he was given these little squiggles of metal, pieces of metal, and they said to him, turn this over to your investigative team, and they should bring them to this man at IBM. Okay, well, they did. And 30 years ago, this guy named Marcel Vogel, maybe more than 30 years ago, sets up a video camera and electron scanning microscope and X-ray diffraction, all stuff, and he analyzes and basically says, with any technology available to me as a scientist today, I can't make this. And he explains why. Well, when we go to the next 500x magnification, now we're seeing all these laser cuttings and things. And then when we analyze it with spectrum analysis, every element in the periodic table is there in discrete relationship to each other. This wasn't just put together in a furnace. It's made cold fusion or outer space. I can't do it. I'm with IBM. Can't make it. We still can't make the thing. So he's saying, there it is. Their sound recordings have been analyzed. People say, oh, that's just like fishing line. No, they analyze the sound recordings. The frequencies are very discrete patterns, interfacing 32 different frequencies. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And whenever you think you could, that's got to be a hook. Well, no, it's this. And this is why this has been suppressed by MUFON, the Pentagon, to the Stars Academy, all this hokey stuff. Mm-hmm. And Tom DeLonge used a couple of Meier photographs, won't even admit. They won't talk about it. I've sent emails to these people. I've tried to get in touch with all these people. They don't want to talk because you're being scammed, folks. The UFO industry, and that's what it is. Yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah, and I if people disagree, obviously, and I'll engage with anybody. Yeah, when you get into the evidence here, you're going, oh my gosh, Meier's got 7 There's a race that works with a Pleiaren. They're little short guys, a different species. They have 7 fingers on their hand. And as a joke, this was years ago, 2006, they came one night, and they've actually done it a couple of times, and because they have a very acidic skin, they put their hands around different places, even up to the elbow like this, on a couple of the cars. One of the cars was the little Subaru car of Meier's stepson. And it etched the papillary lines into the finish of the car, which lasted for years and years and years through all the seasons. And I had a team come in, people from Great Britain who wanted to interview Meier, and they photographed. We have the photographs on our website. And it's like, Linda Moulton Howe says to me, oh, can I bring scientists to examine that? And Billy says, yes, of course, just don't destroy the car. She never came. Why? Because suddenly all this evil alien abduction, this and mutilation, that goes out the window. And what are you left with? You're left with people from another world saying, people, you are in real trouble down there. You better sober up. Nobody's abducting you from outer space. This is information. We've been through all this grief. We've been through the atomic age. We survived. You may not. And as for all these people, get your head straight. So, That's me carrying on about this. The evidence is overwhelming.
I'm trying to go back to these comments here, but somebody.
Anything you want.
There's a bunch of people listening and people from all backgrounds. Some people are new to the work via this podcast. They've never heard of Bilyl Meier. Some people love his work. They love the messages. Other people seem like they believed at one point and want to believe. And this is a question from somebody that wants to know why. I think it's Randall quit. Who is it?
Randy Winters?
Randy Winters. Yeah. Why did he quit representing Bilyl Meier? Is what somebody wants to know.
Wonderful question. In 1986, I met Randy Winters. I had just been given 1,800 pages of the first transcripts, and somehow I coincidentally meet Randy Winters, who's representing the Bilyl Meier case. And we got along very well together. We're both musicians. And Randy, I liked Randy tremendously. He's just an intelligent, good guy, excellent speaker, excellent presenter. And we make a film together called The Pleiadian Connection, which you can still find online, 1987-88. And I used to be the opening act for Randy Winters because I was writing and singing New Age comedy songs about everything you could imagine. UFOs, channeling crystals, health foods, the rest of it. I have a song called Leave Your Body Here With Me. I wrote a song called New Age Blues, Spaceship on the White House Lawn, all this stuff. So I'd be getting out for Randy at these events where he's presenting. I'd do all the silly stuff, sit down, and I'd watch the presentations. But it started to bother me because I'm noticing, wait a minute, I'd read the same material Randy had, but Randy had already gone to Switzerland and met with Bilyl. But Randy's saying things which I know are not right. It's changing stuff that I know this material, just like Randy does. And I'm going, well, that's not right. Why is it? So at one point, in about 1987, I said to Randy, you know, Randy, I would like to also make my own presentations in the Meier case. And Randy was very generous. He says, you know what, that's great. I'll give you a rack of slides. You know, this was way before PowerPoint and all that. Mm-hmm. So I started to go out and make these presentations. And other people who were watching Randy's stuff started to complain to Switzerland. What is he talking about? He's saying this and saying that. So in Switzerland in the 90s, somewhere in 1990s, they said to him, please stop. Do not represent this anymore. You're making a mess here. And so in 2000, I went to Switzerland for the first time to meet Bilyl and everybody. And I've gone just about every year since, 18 times. So in 2004, I said to them, I'd like to represent you officially. And here's what I will do. And here's what I'll promise to do. I will deliver your information the way you have it. I'm not going to add or subtract anything. As long as I have the right to say, I don't know, or I don't agree with this, but this is what's in the mark. So I'm a free person, and you don't pay me anything. I don't pay you. I do it voluntarily. And they said, of course, that's fine. You're your own person. You have your own opinion, whatever. And, as long as you stay to, if you present what we have. And I'm now in the, 14th year of, the 2 7-year agreements. We wrote them out so that I could do that officially. Because I wanted to be very careful to not do what Randy did and to intentionally or unintentionally be spreading disinformation. So if I don't know something about the case, I don't have any trouble. I don't want people to believe the Meier case. It's not what this is about. It's like, people say, and I understand what they mean. I really want to believe. No, don't want to believe. Find out, however long it takes you, whether it's true or not. Make your determination based on everything that you would evaluate. It's very dry up where I am, and my green tea is diminished here. But anyway, this is why it's so important that people question, like the people in your chat room. That is kind of what I live for when people email and they say, well, I have trouble with this, or, what's the answer to that? Where's the evidence? I say, great. So we dialogue about it, or I send them the links that I know, and I say, look, my blog, my website have search engines. They have links to all the other websites. Start to do your own thinking, because what is all this spiritual teaching about that Meier publishes book? Meier's written nearly 60 books. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot. It's about how to think, how our feelings work with our thinking, works with our acting, how our intuition actually functions, how the higher senses get developed over time and through evolution. It's so mind-blowing when people who've been for years and decades studying metaphysics or paranormal, they start to read Meier's books. They've never come upon this. And it's so clear. It's a teaching. It's not a belief system. It's not from so-and-so on planet Narfal as somewhere. No, this is how thinking works. This is how thought leads to feeling. Then you get another thought based on the feeling, which leads you to decide if you're going to take an action. And it all is happening usually below your conscious level of thought. So when you're doing what a lot of people now, fortunately, are wanting to do, they're wanting to become aware of what they are thinking, because we're thinking 24/7 and we're doing stuff, we're feeling, we don't even know where it's coming from because we don't stop to go inward enough and to go, wait a minute. For instance, in 1990, I created a therapeutic process based on thought, and feelings and all mind, body. And I didn't know about the spiritual teaching in the Meier case. So years later, when I found out about it, I said to Billy, here's a DVD I do on a workshop on this. I've done this. I was taken to Europe by a consultant to Princess Diana, the late Princess Diana, to teach this to European business people and government people and all, because it's an internal process, like a meditation, incorporating body, mind, spirit. Well, Billy said, no. Keep doing that, because that is compatible. That's part of what we're teaching through the spiritual teaching. There's many ways and elements of things, and this is doing something that we are teaching. So teach that to people. So I put the DVD up on my in my little shop with DVDs and books and stuff like that. So if people come upon that, they can start to use those elements. But the best stuff, of course, is you start to study the whole body of the material from Billy, from the spiritual teaching. So this is what we're doing now, is trying to focus as much as we can on that, because what is coming societally, what is coming environmentally, geopolitically, the civil war is coming to the U.S. that Meier has been warning about since 1981. We're in the beginning of that now. And I think a lot of people can see it. We must learn how to take control of our own thinking, feeling, and acting, and work with other people, like-minded people, and build networks of like-minded people. Look, I have friends who are lifelong in religious systems that are totally different than anything I would, and I did a little show about this the other night, and I said, the reason we're friends, because sometimes we'll look at each other and go, wow, we come from such different cosmologies, but we overlap in the center. That's where the common values are. I have a friend who's a lifelong Mormon. I've got another friend who's a very, deep Catholic. I've got friends who are Jewish, and the rest of it. I've met people in the Baha'i faith. I've said to people with strong religious beliefs, and this is where it really gets, to me, it's funny. I said, I have absolutely no respect for your beliefs. And I hope you feel the same way about mine, but I like your values, because that's where we overlap. So love, freedom, peace, community, family, all of this good stuff, that's where we are one in the core of our being. And that is what the teaching is about in the Meier case. There's no beliefs, there's no religion, there's no fear of damnation and promises of heaven and all this stuff, because the spiritual teaching is far more ancient. And it's been brought to us by the prophets of the past and changed. And we know the names of some of the other contactees for the Pleiaren of the past. This thing is like when you pull the first thread on the Meier case, you go, I didn't know that. You mean this? You mean that? Yeah. This is not the first rodeo for these people here. Meier is the final contactee prophet person for them that we will have on Earth. We now have all the material we need. If we want it, we study it and we test it.
Awesome. I think we can agree with that. That's a good place to end on, as far as, though. I mean, that's essentially what this show is. I have people, like you said, the friends. I have those people from all faiths, from all belief systems, walks of life. And a big part of it is the discussing ufology and how things do overlap. And even when it comes to the religious values and tradition, how they overlap, and how we just have we feel like we own the terms and we own the practices when a lot of this stuff is universal. So I think that's a good place to end. Somebody who has been very consistent in the chat room, someone named Brittany here, ends with this comment here. She's been sending me a bunch of comments for you, but says, okay, I think this interview changed my opinion about Mr. Horn for the better. So you won one over by coming on this show. So thank you so much. If you want to go ahead and share your links out where people can check out your work and check out the Meier story in a little bit more detail, if you want to do that.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Brittany. That's really touching and very sweet. My website is called theyfly.com. My blog is called theyflyblog.com. I update it more frequently because there's always so much stuff. The new prophecies and predictions from Meier from last year are up on my blog. And we even have stuff dating back to 1948 from his first teacher, and it's happening now all this time. I have an online little show of mine on Tuesday nights. As you know, Patrick, he's going to, we'll have to get you to be a guest too on our show. And we're, having people from different walks of life come in and also be, guests on our show. And we're just trying to work with all of this. On my blog, I have the information to link to Carol's site for this. I answer all my emails. It just takes me time to get to it. So I will tell people that. And then if there's any questions or challenges, please, you send them. Just give me a little time because I also travel and do stuff. But I will respond to all of it. There was something else. Oh, yeah, you know what? If anybody who wants, if you go into our shop and you see a book by Billy or a DVD or anything like that, and you want to get that, and you order it, and you put in your order the name of the show or Derek or however, Truth Seeker, whatever you want to do, as long as I know, I will send you a free DVD too. I've got a new presentation from just last year. I might probably just send you that because it lays out everything in the Meier case. So as long as in some way we refer here to Derek and the show, then I'll send you a free with whatever you order from my shop. So that's my big promo. I'm not really good at promoting, but maybe that's good.
Yeah. Hey, free is always good. So yeah.
So just mention this context, okay? And I really thank you for the interview. I know there's harsh things that we're saying, but this is about our survival. It's not about careers as UFO experts and chasing lights in the sky.
Yep. I agree. It's about the inward work, as above, so below, essentially, at the end of the day. I appreciate your work and what you're bringing to the table. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Michael Horn, ladies and gentlemen, the Bilyl Meier case, very interesting stuff. And when I was just consuming hours upon hours of research, Bilyl Meier, you definitely come across his work, and some of the people you may look up to in the field, they mention his work. And now some people who have no idea who Bilyl Meier is, they hear Truth Seeker mention him, they're gonna look into it. And I'll tell you this, like he said, I will agree with this. You have to come to your own conclusion. You have to do your own work. You have to don't let anybody think for you. Don't feel that just because I have somebody on this show that I vouch for them. That's definitely not the case. I'm not afraid of their story. I'm not afraid to, I'm still learning too. There's a lot of things. I'm not an expert on everything, and I'm willing to say that. And that's how I come to my conclusions. Is if the person claims to be an expert or claims to be the prophet or the end-all, know-all type of person. And I will have to say that, I feel like Bilyl Meier, I feel like they're trying to create almost a religion behind Bilyl Meier, if I have to be honest with you. He is the go-to guy. I was supposed to have some other guests on the show a while back, and I would talk about spirituality with them before we went on the show, and they would say that they're the only person that can do this. Like, I am the only one that can make contact with the aliens or with the angels or with Jesus. I mean, some of your reverends are saying that type of stuff, even without saying it, put it that way. But they claim to be the expert, and they're the one to come to for the knowledge. And so I gave Michael the chance to vouch for anybody. I said, is there anybody in ufology who you feel is doing a good job, who who's doing something good? There's tons of people. I'm reading the comments here. People are mentioning James Gilliland. I love James Gilliland's work. Peter Maxwell Slattery. He's, there's some good stuff that Greer's doing. Greer is up in the air right now for a lot of people, but there's some good stuff he's doing. I did like, David Wilcock early on until he introduced Corey Good and all of that stuff. That's just me personally. But you have to come to your own conclusions, and don't think that just because we have these people on that I vouch for them or they're telling the truth. But just because I say they're lying or question them doesn't mean you have to. I think we all have the gift and ability of discernment. Some of us a little bit more than others, and some people may be able to see a bigger picture that I can't see with particular people. But when anybody, and this goes for pastors, teachers, whoever, claim to be the end-all, know-all, like I am the contactee, I am the one you should be listening to, all of this stuff, and they down other people's work or say stay away from it. There's nobody. We're the only ones teaching the truth. Stay away from those people. Run as fast as you can. Even Jordan Maxwell tells you that. So, you know what I'm saying? Run from those people. I mean, I'll say this. So, I used to listen to a lot of, this would be funny. I used to listen to a lot of Jimmy Swaggart, the preacher. Yeah, right? So, especially with me getting so deep into a lot of stuff that I've studied over the years, like even if we're talking about the Hebrew Israelites or getting into mysticism or whatever the case is, I would always be able to, I was a truck driver and I would be able to listen to Jimmy Swaggart, and they had this thing where like their big thing is we preach the cross, which is the true way of salvation, right? The cross of Christ. But this is an exclusive thing just to them. Like they are the only one who have that message, that revelation. And I've heard Jimmy Swaggart preaching, and I'll say this, I said all that to say Jimmy Swaggart would help keep me grounded as far out as I would get in ufology or mysticism or the Black Hebrew Israelites or whatever what I was studying at the time. I've studied many paths. That would help me stay grounded to my faith in Christ. So, but I've heard Jimmy Swaggart crying on air, on radio, and from the pulpit, crying his eyes out that they are the only church preaching the truth. They're crying, weeping, wailing that they're the only church that has the truth, crying over America and the state of the churches and things like that. You got to stay away from those people. Anybody who claims to be the end-all, know-all, or we're the only ones with the truth. Many denominations are like that in Christianity. They say, hey, the Mormons say stay away from these people. The Charismatics say stay away from the Baptists. The Baptists tell you that the Charismatics are crazy. Everybody has the exclusivity, and they're the only ones teaching it true. I know that's totally not the case, right? I think everybody has a piece of the truth, and people are even mentioning in the comment section about Bilyl Meier that they say some of his stuff is on, some of it's spot on. I think that's the case with a lot of them. Even Jimmy Swaggart, and people are commenting now as I'm bringing this out, saying Jimmy Swaggart's a fraud, it's all about the money. Some of Jimmy Swaggart is good. He's got some stuff that's right on, really good, that you're not going to get from Bilyl Meier. You're not going to get from any other preacher or whoever. So I think everybody has a piece of the puzzle, man. It is really walking in the spirit of discernment to be able to learn a little bit from all of these people and hold on to the good, because I think it'll resonate with us. Some of us have to go down paths. Like maybe you have to jump on board, in my case, with the Black Hebrew Israelites, to go down that path and learn something. There's things that I learned from that cult or that sect of people that I would never have learned in an evangelical Christian church. I would never learn studying ufology or mysticism. I learned how to study. I learned scriptures that many people look over. Even within mysticism or getting into Jordan Maxwell, there's stuff that I've learned that I would have never learned down any of these other paths and stuff. So I believe that all of that stuff happens for a reason. But we just got to make sure that we don't get into the veneration of people, or the veneration of other men greater than ourselves. You know, I deal with this stuff with, like, you know what I'm saying, people who follow a church, even a church leader, because, you know, I still deal with a lot of Christians and church people and stuff. And so, like, I've dealt with some of Brandon Barthrop's groupies here lately, and they love him. Like, they say everyone needs to follow this man. He has the truth. His revelation is on point. I try to check you guys when you guys say that about me. Like, a lot of people try to say that about me, but I'm with y'all. Like, we're studying this together, and I'm trying to knock these people off of these pedestals, because they are too. The Brandon, that's a regular dude. Jimmy Swagger, regular people. Bilyl Meier, that's a regular dude. These guys are regular people, man, and they're not privy to anything that you aren't. If you seek it, you can have whatsoever you ask for. Whatever you want to find, whatever you want to search out in life, in the universe, in the scriptures, you can give yourself over to it. And there's amazing things that you can find and you can see. You don't have to go through another medium, another source to get your information, or to follow a person. Obviously, we all learn from each other, one another. And our hierarchy goes sideways. It doesn't go up and down in the shape of a pyramid. You don't have this one dude sitting up top who's got all these people under him. It goes sideways. We are to submit ourselves to one another, to make sure that we're in check, that we're in line, and that we have one another's back. That's what it's about. So I mentioned these people, man. I think they all have something good to the table. I'm at a weird place too, and I have to check myself, because I entertain some of these conversations. I'm not scared of the conversation. I enjoy the conversation. I don't go around having these conversations in day-to-day life with people about the aliens or the Pleiades. Like, I don't go out looking for conversation. I'm very much a hermit. I have my routine. I deal with my family and my friends on social occasions, but they're very rare. We have our routine. So I enjoy the conversation in the form of a podcast. That's essentially what it is. But then again, just because I'm at this point where I have to, like, not be scared to call people out. Like, I'm a host. And I really have learned a lot from George Noorey, listening to hours upon hours upon hours of Coast to Coast AM, where he'll let these people come on his show, share their story. And even maybe if he feels like they're lying, it makes for a good story, and then they could be telling the truth, because maybe he has the grace enough to say that he doesn't know that they're lying about their story. So he'll let people call in and say, "Hey, I was staring at the moon, and the moon, started moving," and all kind of just weird stuff that sounds. And he will sound very interested in what they have to say. Maybe he is. He doesn't call BS just on random people just because he doesn't believe them, maybe even without proof. So I'm at a point like that, but there is some, there should be some wisdom that is used as well, because some of these people I've had on as guests, man, these people turn around and bite me on the ass. Tell you straight up, Brandon Barthrop has been one of them. I've had people come on the show as a guest, and then the next day they're talking about putting a lawsuit on me and suing me if I promote the content in a particular way. I've had people that I do not associate with anymore that I've interviewed, and we had great discussion, and I've entertained stuff. Part of that is because of my background. I come from the Christianity where you had to be right about everything, like no matter what it was, and usually from Christian doctrine, you're talking about the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, baptism, miracles, the supernatural, angels, demons, like all of these topics, like you had to be right on. And so all of these different denominations claim that they are right about all of these different things, right? They all claim that they hold the truth or the end-all know-all upon baptism or aliens, right? I mean, there's denominations getting popular now to talk about aliens, even in churches or whatever. And so I come from the path of debating people and wanting to win you over to my belief system or my doctrine. I mean, that's what's taught in Christianity. Anybody who's evangelical, essentially someone who goes out there and evangelizes to try to make disciples, you have to get them to agree to your doctrine. So I come from like a really deep into that, especially with the Hebrew Israelites. We would go out on streets and debate people, in the open and stuff. And to win or to be successful was to get them to like renounce their belief system and follow your teaching. I was miserable when I was doing that. And when I had my spiritual awakening, man, and it went even deeper, I essentially embraced love, and I embraced the fact that instead of looking at somebody's belief system or religion and see what made us different and see where they were wrong and where they were off, because hey, we all have it. I mean, there's people who look at me and they see something little. I have a hat that has an eyeball on it. They see that all-seeing eye, they turn it off. They can't listen to me. I'm in the Illuminati. Blah, 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 blah. You find things that you disagree with that makes it where you can't walk with this person. And religion taught me to do that. But now I embrace what's right with people. I'm able to look at people prophetically and see what's good about them, see the potential within them, even that the potential that they don't see within themselves. That's a spiritual gift. Not everybody can do that. But I've found so much peace in my life to look at you and say, okay, I could see the best in you, even when you can't see it in yourself. That's a blessing, but at the same time, it has come to be a curse as well, because with people like Brandon Barthrop, I had many people as I interviewed him, they say, man, stay away from that dude. That dude is out there. That dude is bad news. He's got some crazy off the wall doctrines and belief system. He's poison to the community. Stay away from this guy. Don't give him a platform. And I said, look, I'm not scared of Brandon Barthrop. I'm not scared of his message, and because I see the good that he's doing. Yeah, he's crazy. He's back. He's crazy. Dude is crazy, right? But he's got some good stuff that he's doing. He's taking people off the street. People are coming through his ministry. They're getting off drugs. They're kicking heroin. They're kicking meth habits. Like, that's the stuff that I'm with. All this other stuff he's doing that's crazy, I can see past that to see the good that Brandon Barthrop's doing, right? So I would just build upon that. And that's good. And I've lost followers or lost an audience, but say, okay, Trucy, you're dealing with Brandon. I can't deal with you. If you think Brandon is legit, then we can't deal with you, Trucy, because your discernment is just out the window. It's not that I think that he's legit. I believe that he's doing some good, just like everybody. Everybody has some level of good that they're bringing to the table, and I like to build upon that. It's essentially being able to look at the valley of dry bones in the scriptures, and see these bones that are dead, but being able to look at the dry bones and say, look, this is an army. If we can wake these dry bones up, and if they can become flesh again, we would have an army. Let's prophesy over them. Let's speak over them. And these bones grew flesh and stood up, and the valley of dry bones became an army again, because someone seen the potential in them. Someone spoke out the potential that they seen. And I do that. It's such a blessing to do it. I've won people over to God, to Christ, to spirituality, because I seen potential in them that they did not see within themselves. But it's a place where you overlook the bad stuff that sometimes comes back to bite you on the butt. Maybe that's part of it. I'm trying to learn the place to be a good host, to be a good spiritual leader, and still, not go around causing contention with everyone just because I don't believe 100% in what they're bringing to the table. Some of this stuff is poison, man. You know what I'm saying? And you have to discern, man. And I want to teach you to think for yourself, man. I want to teach you to be able to discern, to be able to look at these people and be able to see the good within them, but also be wary of the bad, be wary of the poison. You know what I'm saying? It's what they say. They say, be able to eat the meat, but spit out the bones. Don't choke upon the bones of this poison that some of these people are putting out there. Everybody has a piece of it, man. Everybody has something good that they're bringing to the table. A lot of people are operating out of hurt. A lot of people are operating out of wanting to be accepted. You know what I'm saying? So they build a platform where people adore them and appreciate them for something that they didn't get from their parents, or mostly, just like in Brandon's situation, from the church. You know, they kicked him out. He got too crazy for him. They didn't want nothing to do with him. So he's like, I'll show you. You know what I'm saying? Let me start my own platform and let me show you. So you have to be able to judge the intentions of people's hearts, man. But and that comes with practice, man. So wherever you are in the spiritual realm, use discernment. I'm for looking into it all, but you have to discern how far you're gonna walk with these people, and be careful. I don't want to be guilty of getting someone to join a UFO cult. You know what I'm saying? And some of these people, they're out there. You think I'm like, trust me. I've been a part of movements that tell you to sell your possessions. Let's move out of the country, and people do it. And they start communes and crazy stuff, crazy people. And then the leader begins to sleep with everybody, his wives, just like Jim Jones and Dr. Malachi York and all of these different cult leaders over time, man. They've all done it. These people are out there, man. You know, so you have to be able to walk in the spirit of discernment before everyone. Give a shout out to everybody who's holding me down in the chat. We got a lot of people hanging out here. Christy Lee, Lil T, Brittany. Brittany says, I actually quit listening to Sika. It was too focused on religion, but this has been amazing. You know, it's funny because like I have the people who listen to me because I discuss religion, and then they'll say, True Sika talks about aliens too much. I'm stopped listening. I enjoy it all. I think all of it's a part of the conversation. I think that UFOs or angels or whatever you want to call these aliens or whatever, it's part of spirituality, especially, and it's part of religion. Like all of this stuff has to do with it. But and it's funny that I can look at the good at the whole Bilyl Meier thing, or you know what I'm saying, the Michael Horn, what he's bringing to the table is like, we did agree. I do agree with the fact that it's about bettering yourself spiritually. But as far as like when you start demonizing other people, you have to be careful of that. Like that shows you that person's intention, that they're trying to build a platform. I can easily get on here and do it, and I don't do it. Maybe I should. I don't know. I really don't. I'm still learning when it comes to this. I've seen good and bad come from it, but the discernment is which you got to walk in. You have to learn. So. Binary says, no worries, True Seeker. I think I speak for the many when I say we think you're cool AF. Thank you, bro. I think you're cool AF too, bro. Somebody says you speak for me, Binary. I love you guys, man. Yeah, I think we all have a piece of the puzzle, and understanding that people would have me just to kind of go live and do my own thing and bring my own information out, which I do try to tie it into the show. But like this platform essentially was built upon having discussions with people, even people I don't agree with, and then trying to, believing that they have a piece of the puzzle and bringing it out. And if you only hear one or two things, and I use Jordan Maxwell as a perfect example, I do not agree with everything Jordan Maxwell talks about. Some of his stuff is crazy. Some of his stuff is speaking from a place of hurt and hatred and bitterness too. You have to be able to discern that. If you can't discern that, you need to, you gotta learn, man. You gotta put this stuff into practice. You can tell people's motives and intentions when you bring up sore subjects to them. Maybe even me when I mentioned Brandon Barthrop and his followers, his groupies. You know what I'm saying? Like those people are nasty, man. There is some bad stuff in what he's doing. But I've kind of, even with him though, on the show, I've discussed that. Like I've talked about his mimicking followers, and people just being rude and cursing people out and sending nasty emails and exposing people. It's insane. And Christy's been my friend Christy Lee, Psychic Christy Lee, she's been in that circle before too, where people talk down upon you and send you nasty emails because they don't believe that you're doing what you're called to do right. Because if they had the platform, they would do it different, right? That's the thing. Many people, like when you build your platform and you have something that you're just showing up, people get jealous of that. people get jealous with that. They feel like they can do it better, or you don't deserve that, or you're teaching and influencing a lot of people that they feel like they should be influencing. Trust me, I've dealt with it for a long time. Carolyn's joining us now, good friend Carolyn. She says, came in late, but we'll watch the whole thing. I think you'll like it, Carolyn. I think you'll enjoy this episode. Make sure you listen to the whole thing. Definitely talking about Bilyl Meier, so it'll be good. So what is behind all religion, the main ones, is not the same as the people who is following. The cult is always extreme and corrupted. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Memeless. Thank you guys for hanging out with me in the chat. I do want to plug what I'm doing again. Definitely through Patreon, for those of you guys who appreciate the show and support the work. Make sure that you support through Patreon. It's what helps keep me going. I really do depend on it. So thank you guys for keeping the channel going, keeping the podcast going, and my music as well. I get to do what I love because of you, and so I try to bring something valuable to the table for you guys and try to just be open as well. So patreon.com/TruthSeeker is where you can support. Also, you get access to the School of the Mystics, and we've been really enjoying that. And I've even, this last week was really good. If you guys are looking for community, looking for a place to belong, if you want to have one-on-one dialogue and discussion with like-minded people, most of the people, not most, but a lot of people who are commenting in the chat room right now, they're part of the School of the Mystics as well. And like I said, it's training, equipping, and then activation, where we actually get to practice hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit, feeling the energies that people are feeling, and speaking it out to try to be effective with. If you just have the revelation, that's one thing. You can know all of this stuff about people, have this inner knowing, and be intuitive. But if you don't have the this, we learned all this last week too. So you'll learn this stuff. Everything is in the archives too. So if you have the revelation, is one thing. You have to get the interpretation, and once you get the interpretation, then you have to walk in the application and apply it. And we're learning how to do this together in a safe space. So make sure you guys join us at the School of the Mystics every Thursday night, 7 p.m. If you missed it, we're